And we're live. Content provided at the event is for general information only, not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. Any performance referenced is historical, no guarantee of future results. All indices are unmanaged and may not be invested into directly. Any economic forecast set forth during the event may not develop as predicted, and there can be no guarantee that any strategy will be successful. These thoughts and opinions are those of Gimbal Financial and do not represent the views of LPL Financial. Securities are offered through LPL Financial, member of FINRA and SIPC, and investment advice offered through Gimbal Financial, registered investment advisor and separate entity from LPL.
Amanda, nice work.
Well, what a whirlwind of a morning. That's all I got to say. I'll take some credit actually for that, for doing that such a with the little stretches we just kind of had. So happy 4th of July weekend.
It's never a dull moment getting these things up and
running. It isn't. And now we're flying just two of us. Doug is in the wild, wild west, starting his holiday early. So it's good to see you. And we miss Doug and always Debbie.
It's good to see you. What's the big plans for the weekend?
I'm here at God's Country, Heritage Lake. And we've got some family and friends coming into town. So we're just going to enjoy the, fingers crossed, really nice weather we've got ahead of us.
Now, like some people have the gift of hospitality and such. So when you have friends in town, does that become a kind of a responsibility? Or are you able to relax with them and just enjoy their presence? How's that go for your family?
A little bit of both. Some of our friends are actually in for a wedding that's happening today, so they're just extending their stay with us just for tomorrow night. And we've got some family coming in, and there might have been some over invites, so this weekend might be a little more stressful, but nonetheless all relaxing at the same time. I mean, just look at my view.
Yeah, look at that.
I mean, that just cannot be beat.
That looks
like the American flag behind me. I mean, it's good.
It's a good thing. That lake looked awful quiet there. I didn't see any. I didn't
give it about 4 hours and it'll be buzzing. That's for sure.
4 hours.
Probably on a holiday weekend like this, it's going to be cool. But how about your weekend? What do you have planned?
We've got Casey coming in town with Kevin. We are just going to be kind of chill. I'm looking forward to just relaxing. I got, let me share my screen here. I got this this morning. Look at this.
Oh, hey, I thought he wasn't working today.
Well, this was last night. See the sun setting and
oh, good.
LJ and Warner are just living the dream there, and Doug is even on vacation.
Great picture.
Get him away from the stock market. So that's he does that all for you folks. He is dedicated and just a passionate chaser of the stock market.
That's right. We miss you, Doug. We miss your wisdom, but we're going to try to do this the best we can.
We can backfill the best we can. Now, in your disclaimer there, you were talking about fireworks and such. I thought, I'm sure there's some dad jokes about people losing appendages this weekend and maybe some Jeff Foxworthy, you know you're a redneck kind of things about the 4th of July. But what's the most aggressive thing you've done with a firework?
Probably shoot one off. I mean, that's not my forte per se. I do not care much for fireworks. I'm indifferent about watching them. It's just kind of the tradition of the holiday. But it sounds like you might have a story to tell if you're asking me that question.
Well, I know our culture doesn't appreciate the differences in genders, but I would suggest that just this season of the year will differentiate boys and girls. I taught Caleb how to hold a stick match and then flick it like this a few years ago. And I've got pictures of him just laundering the horizon with those things. He just, once he figured out how to do it, he couldn't do it enough. And in my childhood, we would blow up all kinds of things with firecrackers, and most of which I wouldn't even want to say on this video in case it would come back to haunt me. But like Yeah, this is the weekend for rednecks, so it's hard to imagine what's going to happen this weekend. I try to stay away from it. I hope every year that my house doesn't burn down from my neighbors. You can
Right on.
you can almost buy professional grade fireworks at the corner fireworks store, which I don't really understand. I don't know how my house hadn't burnt down with my neighbors shooting off stuff,
Well, I
but
think it's because you've got, oh, you will at your house with your neighbors, but I was going to say, I don't know many pyromaniacs that are women personally. And I know you've got a household full of them besides
yeah.
Caleb. So that could provide some explanation to that.
Yeah, I suppose Doug heading west. That picture was in Des Moines, Iowa. I suppose him heading west will put the harness on the Shreve boys, because the more often when I travel out west, there's usually fire bans, so you don't even have the option of buying
Sure.
firecrackers and things out there. So it'll be a safe one for them out there.
Yeah, that's right.
All right, I've got 4 names for you. You ready?
I'm ready.
This is a test, Amanda. The viewers out there know she has not been prepped
I
for
didn't
this.
study. I'm also not a good test taker.
All right. First of all, Phil Livingston. Second, Ed Rutledge. Third, Bill Whipple. And fourth, but not last, is Matt Thornton. What do they have in common?
I only recognize one of those last names. So they're men.
They probably burnt things down,
Yeah.
I guess. All 4 of those names showed up on the Declaration of Independence.
I would have had no idea.
So imagine that the Declaration of Independence supposedly, is ratified or signed or whatever July the 4th. I doubt that they didn't have DocuSign or things like that where they could get all the participants in the same room and sign it. So I think it actually got signed sometime after that. But I think there's like, what were there, like 50 some odd signers of the Declaration of Independence, and
Yeah.
and 56 of them. That's how many of them signed it. But I just thought it takes about 10 minutes to read the Declaration of Independence. I don't know if you knew that or not. I just took some time to read it, but I'll just read you some stuff in it in case you didn't know this was in here. And if you haven't read it, pull it up and read it. It's interesting. The signers had a decent respect to the opinions of mankind. That's what it says that in the first paragraph. I thought that was funny. I have a decent respect for your opinions. It doesn't say I have a complete respect. It says we have a decent respect. They said that they believe that all men are created equal, that they are all endowed by their creator with certain unalienable, I have to look that words up, rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Not happiness, the pursuit of happiness. A lot of rights that I think our citizens are desiring today. Healthcare is not one of them that's mentioned in there. It's life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And then right after that, it says governments are instituted among men. I don't know if they were sexist back then, among people, we'll say, if we're going to take that out of there. And it says this, which I think is really interesting. Governments derive their just powers from the consent of those governed. Isn't that interesting?
That is interesting.
So then after it gets through that little section of the Declaration of Independence, it goes on, it says, here's what we're getting ready to declare. We're doing this based on the history of the present king of Great Britain, and it's a history of repeated injuries and usurpations, which is another big word I'll have to look up. And then it goes through this laundry list of things that the King of England did. One was he harassed their people. He imposed taxes without consent or representation. He subjected, and I'm just reading this from our Declaration of Independence, because if you went to school, you might not have ever been hurt. You might not have ever heard this, but read it yourself. It says, the king subjected our inhabitants of our frontiers to the merciless Indian savages whose known rule of warfare is undistinguished destruction of all ages, sexes, and conditions. How about that? That's not politically correct today.
No.
And then
Signs of the times.
Duet.
Signs of the times. We can't judge for what's happened in the past.
can't even read the Declaration of Independence. And then they finished before all 56 of those signed it. It says, "We mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor." How about that?
Okay,
There you have it.
that's
The
pretty cool. There it is.
That was written when.
That's all of it?
No, I just
Oh,
summarized.
okay, okay.
It'll take you 10 minutes to read it. I'm a slow
Okay.
reader. I could do it in 10. So that's when that was written when boys blew things up and weren't afraid to subject their opinions to others who didn't care for them. But it was a different time back there, and they risk a lot. I hope everybody is able to enjoy 4th of July weekend and the independence that's been brought to us in America, because that's a really big deal.
That is huge.
I
We're
think,
thankful.
yeah, I think almost every year at this time on the Anchor, we talk about the critical importance of freedom. And I don't know if people really stop and think how valuable freedom is, but that's a huge deal. I find it not only freedom in the physical realm, but freedom in the spiritual realm is a big deal to me. And so 4th of July just reminds me to be thankful. It's thankful for where we are and how we got here.
Amen. That's a cool thing. We're very lucky to be in the country that we're in.
Yep. And it gives us the freedom to, one of the things America gives you is the freedom to own assets, which is part of what Gimbal does, is help you figure out how to use your resources to make and live your best life. So let's talk a little bit about that, and then maybe circle back around on some other thoughts. I want to talk about some indices here. I'm going to share my own screen here. Hopefully you can see. Do you see my the charts, or did I move it off of the right?
Oh, they were on, now they're off. Now I just see your desktop.
It's a really pretty picture.
It is. Where'd you take that? I assume you took it.
I did. That's a park in Ohio that I visited. I can't think of the name of it off the top of my head here. And it's a hike that I did on my own. And when I got out there, somebody else had tried to do it on their own and didn't succeed. So I had to call the park rangers for them, not too far from this. All right. Do you see a chart now?
Yep, I see aerospace/defense.
All right. I have to move this over here and still see it?
Still see it. You're doing great.
It is. All right.
Oh,
so
there, now I see the NASDAQ.
I want to just talk about slopes a little bit here. I didn't do very well in geometry when I was in school, but slopes become more of an important idea to me now that I'm post-sophomore high school geometry. But I'm just going to draw some lines. There's no guarantees in any investing you do. Anything we talk about is an opinion. And so you don't have to, just like that thing said, that you don't have to share my opinion, just like the Declaration of Independence. Here is the slope the market, this is the NASDAQ was taking prior to the pandemic of COVID last year. And it formed what we call our channel lines here. And then all of a sudden it dramatically dropped off. And then when the market started coming back, it started forming a different slope. I don't know if you can, and it did these same channel line kind of things, but the slope is a little bit steeper coming out of that decline.
March.
Yeah. Yep. And then we went through a correction here last fall. A lot of people maybe didn't even notice it, but this was a really choppy market here. And then once we came out of that correction, then it took off on a slope very similar to what it was doing right after the pandemic. And then once we hit February this year, we have been in a flat market. And even though we hear the indices are hitting new highs, it's not been a very easy market. And this is what the NASDAQ, how it represents it. And in the past, I've talked about long lines, where these lines get long like they are right here and over here, that I don't care for those. And with this kind of market where it's zigzagging over here, it makes it a harder market to stay invested because of all the volatility in there. Along with what the market itself was doing, then I'm going to clear off hopefully those lines. This blue line right here
Yep.
shows me how strong the Nasdaq is relative to the S&P 500, which is more traditional stocks. And so um, coming out of the pandemic last year, the slope on this relative strength was showing that the Nasdaq was stronger than the S&P 500. The S&P 500's relative strength to itself would just be a straight line because it's measuring itself against itself, and it doesn't go anywhere. It is comparatively to itself just flat. So then as we started hitting this period right about here in February, the Nasdaq started underperforming the S&P 500, and we've talked about that in previous shows. So that's kind of what's been going on in the Nasdaq. It just hit new highs this week, and it's done it with lesser strength. This rally that we had over in this section, this rally, if you notice, this is the average volume in the market here, and the volume picked up dramatically as it's going up this side over here, and then when it peaked out over here, we saw the volume start drying up, and basically people were moving money around to other places. And so that's what's been going on in the NASDAQ. We still remain optimistic with the NASDAQ. It's just trying to reposition itself, I think, now trying to take the lead. And we could do the same thing with the S&P 500. We can kind of take a look at what it did. You can see it was at kind of this slope right here going into the pandemic, and then when it came out of it, I'm just gonna connect the bottoms here. It's kind of more along this lines right here. So it came out at a very similar slope.
Yep.
So it's kind of continuing the same kind of rate of increase that it was doing pre-pandemic, and nothing kind of spectacular going on there. Stock prices have got significantly more pricey than just a few months ago, but that's S&P 500. And then S&P 600 here, I'll just take you one more. This is a picture. S&P 600 represents smaller companies. They're all large companies they're much smaller than the NASDAQ and S&P 500. So if I come over here pre-pandemic and show you the kind of the slope of this one, it's these smaller companies were not at a very high slope, and then they dropped almost in half. That's a pretty dramatic drop that they took in that thing, and then they began a recovery, and their recovery was initially at a kind of a minor slope, a little bit more than what it was doing maybe before, and then they last October the smaller companies took off, and then they peaked out in early March. But that slope picked up, and a lot of times going through recessionary times, these smaller companies are able to navigate a little bit more aggressively. But we've seen those stocks then in that same time flatten out in the last 90 days as well. And so even though the markets and the indices seem to be showing new highs, the underlying stocks are a little less clear of what's really going on out there. Does that make sense, Amanda?
Sure does. A little bit. We're reaching a plateau.
This is my final kind of comparison to it. This is a I got to do this quickly. Some reason my screen doesn't keep the drop down menu available for me. It disappears.
It's just not nice. It's saying it's the weekend already.
It is taking time off. I can't walk and chew gum, so trying to do this thing, it's hilarious. It's just almost.
Oh, rats. MUTI?
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna.
Ooh, that was slick.
All right.
You just cheated the system. That was impressive.
So this is a index. It's an index based on the IBD Mutual Fund Index and Investors Business Daily. It's just trying to give you a feel for what's going on with mutual funds in general. And again, if you see the slope of what this mutual fund index was doing, you can't buy an index. So this is not something you can buy. This just gives you a flavor for what was going on out there. And it was trending upwards a little bit, and then just got smashed. This thing dropped from 1,700 down to about 1,100, which is a pretty dramatic drop. And then it started coming back, and it rallied at this slope for a while. Then in the summer months, it corrected again, just like the NASDAQ did, until about November. Then you could see it rallied again into February, and has traded flat since February. And so then if you look right here and right here, those are two pretty dramatic drops, not completely 10% drops, but pretty substantial drops. And those happened in March and May. And so the market itself has been hitting new highs, but it hasn't been doing it in a very easy methodology since the beginning of the year. So, looking over some of the statements for clients as they'll be getting statements in the next few days, just there hasn't been a lot of progress in the account values in the last 60 or 90 days. And not really making any excuses. I'm just pointing out why that might be the case. If you look at your statements and you feel like, because you've heard on the news that indices have been hitting new highs and your account isn't, probably a couple reasons for that. One is that you might be taking money out of the account. That would, in a flat market, that would cause your account to drop. And then secondly, is the markets have just been kind of bubbling, like boiling water kind of things, what's been going on with markets. So that's what I've got to say about slopes and the slopes that we've been. So a lot of times, we said this a few weeks ago, a lot of times the saying is sell in May and go away. And historically, a lot of the stock traders go on vacation during the summer months, like Douglas, and the volume drops off. But last summer, 2020, the summer months were really good. And so we're actively paying attention to opportunities as they unfold and willing to move if those make sense. In the meantime, we're cautious, as we have been, cautiously optimistic.
Right on. I've got one more thing to just mention. I know we've mentioned that Doug is out. Keith might be taking a couple days off, but Debbie and I are here throughout the month of July. So if there's anything that we can be doing for you or helping you with, we can do it all. We're here to encourage you and support you and get you your money if you need it, put money in if you'd like, but we're not shutting down at all.
Yeah, I appreciate that. The idea that Doug has a computer available if something does, need our attention while we're out of the office. The technology that living in this free country has offered us is really good. We'd like to get our brains disconnected while we're on vacation, but if something would require our attention, we can pretty quickly jump on board and help out with that. Couple final ideas I was pondering. I think it was about a decade ago that my mom lost her independence, which is something most people don't, maybe we take our freedom for granted, but we will all most likely lose our independence when age catches up with us. And so it was about a decade ago where we had to start aggressively making decisions for my mom, and that's not a very peaceful thing, probably about as peaceful as signing a Declaration of Independence. There's a lot of warfare that can come into the equation, and I know Debbie's been working through that with some of the situations from her folks, and so as our listeners and friends go through those things where you start to lose your own independence, or you see maybe somebody else who's losing their independence, we really are happy to jump on board and help make some suggestions and help you through those difficult planning seasons. And we have a number of resources, professionals that can walk through those seasons and help make decisions. So if you're walking through that, if your parents, your cousins, your aunts, your uncles, if somebody's going through that, don't be bashful to call us, because we can connect you to the resources that we've used. And you can't take all the stress out of that, but you can sure get some people in place to help lower the stress with that.
That's great. We all will face it at some point in time. So
yeah, it's
us earlier, some of us later.
I think the greatest thing you can do, Amanda, is to begin have, like you and your folks have those conversations today, and say, hey, mom, dad, today you don't have any health issues. Today it's a joke. We can talk about it and not really um, get too wound up about it. But what if that day comes where you're going to start yelling and screaming at me because I took your car keys
Yeah.
away? What do you want me to do when you disagree with that decision? And so those conversations, um, I think the generation that preceded the baby boomers was called the silent generation, and my dad and um, my uncle and people of that age were the silent generation, and so those proactive conversations didn't take place. And so I think the gift that you can give, not only you, Amanda, but we as baby boomers or millennials or Gen Xers or whatever you are, is the benefit of conversation to have those awkward conversations with the people you love, and to what did I say? That's one sentence was that we have a decent respect for the opinions of others, and so that's just an idea of something that you can maybe think about as you're thinking about those that you love.
Yeah.
What else, Amanda?
That's great
Anything else
advice.
this week to throw out there to folks?
Just have a great weekend, be safe, but also take risks. That's what I told Doug before he left. I said, be safe, but take risks and have fun.
I think
it's worth taking those risks.
I think we need to say that every week, don't we?
Okay, that's our new slogan.
Yeah, I don't know what that looks like for you all. Probably doesn't include blowing off some fingers with some firecrackers, but who knows what it looks like. So enjoy your weekend and have a great 4th. And I'm thankful for you, Amanda, and our whole team at Gimbal. So I'll see you soon.
Likewise.
Alrighty. Bye-bye.
Bye.